Welcome to session 3 of Parenting Through the Phases. Today we're going to learn how to make history, but just 1 week at a time, and then really how all of these awesome tools that we've gained over these last 3 weeks can be used by creating a rhythm in our home. Sometimes you read a parenting book and it's just like, how do I do all of this stuff? Well, today I'm going to help you piece some of that together. As parents, one of the most important things we can do is learn how to redefine our parenting at every phase. That window of time when we can influence our kids. You know what we're doing when we show up consistently and invest in their life the right way? We are making history. We're giving them a relational and emotional history that sets them up for the right kind of future. So let's think about it another way. Most kids don't know, they're not putting it together, that what we do this week is going to be a formative part of their history. I think that's why we get the eye rolls when we ask them to do things, or they just don't understand, why are there boundaries on my cell phone? I don't get it. They're just kids and they only see now. To them, this week, you just built a Lego tower, watched a movie with them, played basketball in the driveway, went hiking, snuggled them to sleep, ate pizza and ice cream. Those are just the things that they remember. But as adults, we see yesterday, today, and tomorrow, so we should know better. We should realize by being present in a kid's life week after week in a variety of different ways that we're actually making history. The problem is we can't always see the results, but the best thing we can do is choose to keep investing into what we can't see, to keep being present for what doesn't seem to be happening, to keep trusting that over time will do what God designed it to do. For example, a child doesn't experience worth because he's loved once, but instead because he's loved by someone over time. Kids don't understand the world through a single event, but through a collection of stories over time. Teenagers are not motivated to change by one phrase. Most of you know what I'm talking about, but by words that move them over time. Kids don't feel like they belong because of one invitation to something, but because they've been welcomed in a tribe over time. Teenagers don't suddenly feel significant one day. They feel significant when they learn how to do something significant over time. No one discovers how to live in a moment. They figure out how to have joy and engage in life over time. So, when it comes to our role as parents, there are a set of very critical things that our kids need from us over time. The good news is, you're probably already doing that. We just want to identify them so that we can become more intentional about what we're doing week after week. This has been super helpful for me in my learning how to parent journey. So none of these things are that impactful without the investment of time. But when you do them over time, they have incredible potential to influence our kids' futures. So the first and maybe the most important thing we can give our kids over time is love. I know we already talked about love, but this is about giving it to them. If we give it to them consistently, if we show up week after week, that we're demonstrating to them that they're a priority, that does something amazing. Love over time is the best way to give your child worth. Kids need to learn to love themselves while they're kids. If kids don't feel loved when they're young, they may never love themselves in a healthy way. Love is like investing. It gains shares. The sooner we start paying in, the greater the return will be. The longer we wait, the less we earn. Simply put, deposits put into someone's life as a child will earn more interest. When we wait until they're adults, the gains will just be slower. But that doesn't mean that we don't start even if they're adults. So begin as early as possible to give your kids a sense of worth. Here's another one, words over time. We all have a tendency to underestimate the weight of our words. I see this when I'm joking around with my kids, like maybe I would have with my brothers and sisters, and I see hurt instead of a fun joy. But research has actually shown, in order to think a thought or paint a picture, work a math problem, we need words to do those things. So every time we speak to our children, we're reinforcing or expanding their vocabulary. We're giving them words that will shape how they see the world, how they see themselves, how they think about God. Our words will help them imagine and understand the things that they can't see so that they can keep moving in a positive direction. So during this COVID-19 season, we really have even more time in many cases to exchange more words with our families. I ask you this question. I ask myself this question. Are we building up and adding value? Are we guiding and pouring into our children and our families constructively? Or is the amount of time wearing our patience thin? So let's think about what we say over time as a parent through each phase. Say it so it matters. Say it so someone knows they matter, because a few words can have a lasting influence. They can impact the direction of someone's life. Kids also need stories over time. You know why? Because stories over time actually hand them a history that helps them to navigate their future. What does that mean? So without personal and family stories, kids miss out on having the kind of relational history that fuels like a healthy perspective about their own identity, about who they are in Christ. Without fictional and cultural stories, kids could miss out on what they need to stretch those imaginations, to develop values, and maybe even gain empathy for people in the world around them. Stories over time expand a child's mind in a way that can shape his or her perspective. The stories we tell matter. We're inviting kids and teens into a bigger narrative, one where they've been designed to play a significant role. Remember when I talked about how important significance is? So since school has been closed this spring, my middle school daughters have read a total of, yesterday I counted, and I think it was 26 books. And some of you might be like, Jody, my kids don't like to read. Well, I hear you. I have one who does and one who doesn't. And the one who does has read 15 books, and the one who doesn't has read the rest. My trick is that I pay them to read. My kids don't get paid to do chores or help out around the house. There's no such thing as allowance in the Elmquist home. But we came up with a plan that would encourage reading, would encourage and expand their stories. So the rules are they have to choose a chapter book that's no less than 150 pages, and they get paid $1 per 100 pages. I'm kind of going broke from this COVID-19 reading season. But the point is that the stories we watch and read remind us of the struggle between good and evil, the existence of a supernatural and miraculous power, the potential to be personally restored and transformed. Stories can offer the hope and insight into those things. It's stories that will give them a history. It will transform your son or daughter's perspective, and stories that make life fuller, your faith deeper, and their hope stronger. So here's another one that might be more important than you think it is. Fun over time. The truth is, we may need to laugh a little more, dance a little longer, play a little harder. Experts say that giving your kids the right kind of play history is critical to their emotional and relational intelligence. Don't make the mistake of thinking fun is a waste of time. Because what fun can do over time gives a kid a sense of connection to us and to others. Think about it. Fun over time convinces kids that we actually like them. It may be that before your kids can feel loved, they may need a little evidence that we like them. And they'll probably never be sure we like them until we start having fun with them. Fun over time reconnects what has been disconnected. Therapists have long known a secret that parents and leaders should learn. Playing with kids breaks down walls. When something has broken a relationship with a child, fun can become a bridge to rebuilding trust with each other. Fun over time authenticates forgiveness. Remember, it's hard to fake forgiveness with kids, and our kids may not believe we've really forgiven them until we take the initiative to have fun with them again. I became aware of my lack of fun factor over this time at home, like during the COVID-19. I've been working from home, more time with my kids, they're not in school. But my daughter said to me in response to my voicing a correction to a chore, I kind of do that a lot and I'm really working on it. But she'd done this chore and I corrected her and she said, "Mom, I really feel like I can't do anything good enough for you." She's 13, and it broke my heart, but it also brought something into the light. I'm not bringing enough fun into this relationship with my kids. So I took this opportunity in the midst of a pandemic to have more fun with my kids, doing the kinds of things that they like to do, and the growth in our relationship was pretty much immediate. The fun we have actually allows me to continue to speak loving and redirecting truth into their lives because they know that they are liked and we are connected in our fun too. It's not just all about this wasn't done well. If we want to build trust, have lasting influence, establish deeper connections, we have to make fun a priority. So what about this one? Work overtime. And all the parents are like, yes, I love putting my kids to work. I'm so one of those parents. Something happens in every child's life when they learn to make a contribution, when they learn to help others, when they learn to sacrifice, when they learn to work. If we don't want our kids to grow up with an entitled mindset, like I deserve this, I get this because that's the way it is, it's important to give them work and service to do in appropriate ways at every phase. So work over time really does equal significance. It's not enough to tell a kid they're significant. We have to give them something significant to do. When we take the time to coach them, to help them develop a skill, to encourage them to be responsible, to motivate them to help, it puts something in motion in their life that's connected to their sense of mission, their sense of purpose. Everyone needs to know that what they do matters. So even if it would be done faster or better if we just took care of it ourselves, just let it go. You are hearing this from a professional, not litter goer of things. It's okay. We really can be okay and live through that room not being perfect, or that pillow that's cockeyed on the couch, or that dinner having a little too much salt, or that the lawn has some taller chunks of grass in the middle of it. The exchange is so worth it. Here's one last practical thing every child needs from their parent: tribes over time. Kids and teens desperately need people who know them, welcome them, and forgive them, and that they do these things over time. And why? It's so that they can develop that sense of belonging. Since we're making history with kids, it's important to intentionally put people in their lives who can help develop that history. I used to think I was enough, maybe grandmas and grandpas too, but overall, I would have been content with being the only major influence in my kid's life. Wrong answer, Jody. One of the most important things we can do as a parent or a guardian in our kid's life is to invite other adults into their life, to widen their circle of influences. There will actually come a day in their middle school or high school phase when they'll care more about what other adults think than what we think. So start building their history with other adults sooner rather than later. So my 12 and 13-year-old daughters, they now have 2 women in their lives. Both are godly. They're a lot younger than me, and so that makes them way cooler than me. Mom's just not cool anymore anyways, so that's fine. They're the kind of women who I want my kids to have in their lives. So when they have questions about life and boys and friends and God, when they don't necessarily want to come to mom with that, I still want to be a part of the equation. But my kids are going to choose what to say to whom. And if I'm not that person, I sure as heck want to be sure I have included trusted, wise, and faith-filled people in their tribe. I want them to be going to those people, maybe in those times when they don't really feel like coming to mom. I want those kinds of people helping to guide their trajectory. So when kids do life in the right kind of tribe, it does stack the odds in their favor. When they grow up with the sense of that they're known, that they're welcomed, that they're forgiven, and when they get that over time, it really increases their emotional and their spiritual health. So these are the 6 things every kid needs at every phase. If we're going to make the right kind of history with them, this is actually why there is a guide for every phase. So every parent or guardian can have a practical way to leverage how these things should show up in the life of a 4-year-old, or a 3rd grader, or a 10th grader. Just remember, we're making history with the kids in our house 1 week at a time. So you're probably wondering, with all the things that I've learned, how do we do this? I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but here's a sobering thought. No one has more potential to influence your kids than you. And that may seem like a lot of pressure, but it's just true. And I can tell you that all of these things really are possible. And it just takes a little bit of practice. But no one's gonna spend the same amount of time with your kids, like feeding, cleaning, transporting, disciplining, or loving your kids as you do. So over the last few sessions, we've been discovering new ways to help us become more intentional in our parenting. We started by asking you to number your weeks, start that countdown with your marble jar or beads or however you want to do that. And then we talked about how to redefine our roles in our kids' life, to embrace our preschooler, to engage with our elementary age kids, to affirm our middle schooler, and to mobilize our high schoolers. We covered the 6 things you should give your kids at every phase and the 4 conversations to have with your kids to help them form healthy habits, grow in sexual integrity, have technological responsibility. It still makes my heart better thinking about how I'm doing that with my kids. Am I getting it right? And then develop an authentic faith. So now you probably only have that one question left. Where will I find all the time to do this? And I actually think there's a secret to parenting your kids at every phase, and it's something you can find in the ancient writings of Moses. And this is how he taught the Israelites when he was having them how to transfer their values to their children. It was a period of time in the Jewish history when Moses knew things were about to change. The nation of Israel was about to be immersed into a different culture with a different set of values. Sound familiar? Maybe sound like some of the world's values? But Moses wanted to make sure that his generation passed down their legacy of faith to the next generation. So he leaned into parents and leaders and he said this: if you're going to impress these truths in the hearts of your children, you'll have to be a little bit more deliberate about creating a rhythm in your home. Think about it for a minute. Things that we've been talking about over these last weeks, things that we talked about earlier today. You've probably identified some things that you really want to impress upon your kids. You know the kinds of things that you want to prioritize in your home. So now, here is the game plan. You have to create a rhythm in your family where those very things become a part of your everyday activity. Moses went on in his speech to the Israelites, and he said this: talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands, bind them on your foreheads, write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. What he says here may seem so common sense that at first glance, we wonder why he even said it. But it was actually a remarkably futuristic statement. His statement transcends every generation and taps into the unique potential of all families. Generally speaking, all people get up with the sun, move around during the day, share a meal, and go to sleep at night. That's just the way things normally flow. So let's take a look at what Moses said again. Talk about them when you sit at home. Do some of us maybe have a little bit more time at home? When you walk along the road. I know we've been trying to do some hiking at our house. When you lie down and when you get up. This rhythm cooperates with the way life naturally happens. What if the best way for us to parent our kids in this phase is simply to leverage the everyday moments we already have together? In this way, we don't need to add an extra special family meeting to our week. We don't need to wake our kids up an hour early so we can have more quality time with them. We simply need to begin to notice the time we already have together and maybe be a little more intentional. This doesn't just apply to the seasons or the parts of life that have been forced to slow down or even stop altogether now. This will still work in whatever our new normal looks like in these coming months on the other side of this COVID-19. What an opportunity to hit that big flashing reset button that you have been peeking at out of the corner of your eye for years. Just like everything else, the natural rhythm of your home will change at every phase. In the phase guides, we identified 4 key times for every phase of life. Most likely, you'll never have more of a schedule than you do in the first years of life. With a new baby, your rhythm might look like this: morning time, feeding time, bath time, and cuddle time. With a preschooler, you may spend less time feeding them the same way you did with a baby, but your time in the car might become a little bit more interactive. Maybe you begin talking to your preschooler and playing special music as you go. In the elementary years, things begin to look a lot like Moses talked about. As you wake your kids up for school in the morning, you have a unique opportunity to instill purpose in them by starting their day with encouraging words. I tried to do this at the beginning of my kids' day and at the end. It's been really helpful. And then as you go along the road, driving them to school, that will happen again, or other activities, you can use this time to interpret life and have informal conversations. Like when you eat a meal together, it doesn't have to be around a formal dining room table or an especially fancy home-cooked meal, but you can take some time to have more intentional conversation that will establish values. And as they go to bed at night, never miss an opportunity to tuck them in. I don't think it really matters how old they are. Just go in and tuck them in. Give them your attention at the end of the day to build a unique level of intimacy with them. In the middle school years, the kind of time you have with your preteen may change. You may have to loosen your expectations for what will happen in those everyday moments, but some of the wisest middle school parents I know have keyed in on the value of one time in particular. They say drive time is premium. Think about it this way. If you have middle schoolers, you're probably doing a lot of driving. Maybe not right now, but what if instead of dreading the hours on the road as you wait for the day your kid can drive herself to the movies, you decided to see travel time as a window of opportunity? So now, in a time that those hours on the road might be more limited because we are in a health pandemic, maybe where there are things that are canceled that you used to go to, you can still use that drive time. What if you use that time to get out and about and have some fun, like with one-on-one time with your middle schooler? In a few short years, you won't have the same kind of time together. In high school, it may seem like there are very few times left when you and your kid are in the same place. Even in this time where we're at home more, my high schooler is still in his room a lot. You might have to wake up a little earlier or try to rearrange your work schedule so you can catch them on the way out the door in the morning, or when they come up for breakfast before they go back and hibernate into their room. You may have to offer to pay to get takeout from their favorite restaurant just so you can share a meal together on occasion. You might just decide to fold some of their laundry. Not my favorite thing to do, but if it's a reason that I can be in their room at bedtime, just in case my teen wants to talk or say goodnight. But one time every high school parent has is something we call their time. It's that moment when your high schooler calls you. Maybe they forgot something they need. Maybe they're in a situation and they really need you to bail them out. Maybe they just suddenly decided they wanted to talk to you. Wouldn't that be cool? My adult child, I'm super excited whenever she shoots me a text. Whenever it happens in these short years, when you only have a few marbles remaining in your jar, stop whatever you're doing. Their time is actually part of your everyday rhythm in high school. So maybe these times resonate with you, or maybe you have others that seem more prominent for you and your family. The main thing about this week is simply this. What's the rhythm in your home right now? We'll never be able to add hours to our day or days to our week. Not any more than we can add marbles back into our jars. After they've passed, that's it. All we can do is begin to view everyday moments, those moments that we have together, just in a little more intentional way. I like to use the Parent Cue app for this. It helps remind me how to use some of these times. But remember what we've already said. What happens in a moment will never have the same kind of impact as what happens over time. That's why there is this collective momentum with what we do every week. With each phase, we redefine our roles, our routine times. With each phase, we learn to adjust how we interact with our kids and how are we parenting. With each phase, we fight for our relationship in a new way. Because once your 5-year-old is 6, you will never get a chance to know them again as a 5-year-old. And before you know it, your kid will be 10, and then 11, and then they'll never be 10 again. We can't get those weeks back. And then they'll be 12, and 13, and 15, and 17, and then we have literally lost all of our marbles, and it happens fast. And we can't put the marbles back in the jar, because that's the nature of time. That's why what happens in the routine times of your life aren't really routine. That's why cooperating with the rhythm of your day and your week, your year, it's more important than it ever feels like it is. So just remember, you don't really need more time to build influence with your kids. You just need to leverage the time you already have. If you want to leave a legacy of faith and character in the life of your children, do it. Do it when you sit down, when you get up, when you settle in for the night, when you're riding along the way. Remember, it's what we do in the ordinary rhythms of life that will make that lasting impression on our kids' hearts.
From the day your child is born to the day they graduate, you have 936 weeks. 936 weeks of soccer practice and homework, and teaching them to use deodorant. 936 weeks to instill values, to build character, and to prepare them to face the world. You want to be a great parent, and we are here to help with each moment of your parenting goals. Driving your 4th grader to practice, saying goodbye to your 10th grader as he is walking out the door, eating tacos in the kitchen with your 7th grader, tucking your toddler in at night. These moments happen every week, and we want you to be aware of the time you have left, because when you are, you do more with the time you have now. We cue you with easy, just-in-time ideas of things to say, things to do, and things to think about to connect with the heart of your child. Our cues are grounded in God's big story, so your child can discover the power of faith in those everyday moments of life. Every cue fits the context of your child's developmental phase. We cue you when your high schooler won't leave their room. Your middle schooler won't pick up their clothes. Your 2-year-old won't stop talking. We help you understand these moments, and we help you connect. You only have 936 weeks. You can't afford to waste them. Parent Q, helping you be the parent you want to be. Download it for free today.